Welcome back to season 1 of Another Man's Shoes, and in this episode we've got Steve Beedie joining us. This is one that I recorded a couple of years ago, and we're just re-editing it and putting it back out ahead of Steve joining us on season 3. So grab a brew, put your feet up, and enjoy this episode with Steve Beedie, an absolute legend. Welcome to another episode of Another Man's Shoes. Delighted to have on a good friend of mine from back in my military days, Steve Beedie. We haven't seen each other for probably 13, 14 years. I think the last time I actually caught up with Steve was when we were in Iraq and we were kicking around in the sandbox. But Steve, thanks very much for coming on tonight, and really looking forward to hearing about your journey.
Oh, mate, it's an absolute pleasure. And do you know what, mate? It is crazy, right, how we haven't spoken to each other, not like this for, like you're saying, 13 odd years. And it's just like instantly, you know.
Yeah, no, it is. That's the good thing, isn't it? I mean, that banter, that camaraderie, and I suppose it's almost, we've been through stuff, you know, every soldier has. You've got so many shared life experiences, and you've been together and you've done some really sort of crazy stuff that it doesn't matter, you know, if you've seen each other for a week or month, 10 years, you know that guy's always there. You can ring him up, you can just pick up where you left off, and if you're in the shit, you know you can rely on them more than probably a lot of your civvy mates who you haven't got a clue.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I love my civvy mates. You know, I've got a few that are like really close to that I grew up with, but even they know that that fucking military bond, that camaraderie, it's nothing comes close. Nothing.
No, it doesn't. And I think that's probably what a lot of us sort of yearn for. We've got that experience. We keep talking about, oh, do you remember when? Or, oh, do you remember you did that? And you come out with your little war stories, and you see your mates that just look at you, and, you know, the wife, the kids, like, oh, here we go. Here's another story. Pull up a sandbag. But, you know, I think that's what we're all about. You know, I think but maybe we'll just have to all set up our own little commune. Just all sit there and just sort of tell stories about how great we were. We probably weren't actually that good, but...
Yeah, I think we totally fucking big it up a little bit. As the older I'm getting, people have stories, I'm like...
Yeah, the older I get, the better I was.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because lads that I served with when I was in Germany, and one of them we still keep in touch, it's the same as yourself, but he messaged me during lockdown, and he said, now I live in the northeast of Scotland, and they live in Western Supermare, and he's like, Stevie, mate. He says, yeah, what's up? He says, go and move down here. And he was being serious. Like, go and just like up sticks and move down here. We miss you. And I'm like, fucking hell, man. It's been like 15 plus years since I've seen these guys. And they're like, go and just move down to south of England.
I know, it's crazy. And you'd have moved down there, and, you know, if it had all worked out, you'd have just carried on where you left off, and would have been crazy. Except you haven't got the $5 or 5 Deutschmark sort of crates of her for the pills to keep you going on a cold night.
Go on, got some stories, yeah.
So obviously we're going to chat tonight about your journey and sort of live in your shoes. And I mean, you've led a pretty sort of crazy from where you've started to where you are now. And I know you've had some highs and you've had some lows, which has sort of probably dictated the last part of your life. And so I think, can we just start off where you're from, what your childhood was like, what your upbringing, and sort of go from there?
Yeah, man, it's funny getting asked this question, because I look back on my life, my childhood. I'm from a little town called Banff in the northeast of Scotland. It's a fishing village. It's a very beautiful town. It is shrouded in history. There's so much history here, and it is where my heart is. I do love it here, but looking back, I've got so much trauma in my childhood, like phenomenal amount of trauma. I grew up without a dad for 12 to 13 years. Didn't have any money. There was times when I remember one Christmas, mate, we had such a poor upbringing that we didn't get anything for Christmas once.
Wow.
And I look back at that with like a happy memory, because it was one of the times in my life when I was young when I thought, I'm going to make it when I'm older. I'm not going to have this as my experience when I'm older. And it taught me so much, you know, and that was like one of many. A lack of things, a lack of like money, a lack of like resources and stuff gave me a sort of early doors kind of view to figuring things out, no matter how the situation was. like, for example, like all my friends and stuff started to get bikes because their dads were either farming, fishing, offshore, or local tradesmen. Well, I didn't have that. I didn't have a dad. My mum couldn't afford it. And so, like, just like a quick insight, like, I didn't get a bike when everyone else did. And I remember thinking, like, fuck off. How come everyone else manages to get all this fucking stuff and it's just a bike? So that was back in the day where you could go up to the local skips and salvage things. You know, you could salvage stuff. So I went up there and I was like, fucking in the fucking scrap heap. And the old guy says, "What are you looking for, son?" So I'm looking for a bike, mate. And he's like, "Oh, we just got one in." And he had this bike frame, but it only had one wheel and one brake. And the brake was fucked. So I says, "Right, take that brake off. I'll take the bike and I'll come up next week." So it took me like 6 weeks to build this bike. But it looked like a piece of shit. But it fucking worked. It worked.
Fantastic.
Honest, to this day, I remember that. I remember that feeling of putting this bike together and looking at it and going, I did that.
Yeah. That satisfaction.
That's satisfaction. And as much as like nobody else will remember that because it's my story, but I remember looking back and thinking, I've got what it takes to go and get what I want, even if it's not handed to me. So looking back at my childhood, I have a lot of trauma, but I've also got a lot of lessons that have kind of given me that insider edge to, you know, I got picked on a lot at school, you know, because I came from a poor background. And all it did was just make me hungrier. Yeah.
You think it sort of planted a seed in you and made you want something more? Because I suppose you had to earn everything. It's not like someone's just giving it to you and put it on the plate.
Man, honestly, like, it's funny because I'm proud of these moments of my life. I've been writing about them a lot and I talk about them now and again. But these very specific moments they're not big war stories. They're not big, like, this is a great, huge story that the world needs to hear. But I remember my mum was really struggling once. And that was back when we had a coal fire. And we had enough coal for 2 days, but we had no food in the house. And there was a loaf of bread and some milk. And my mum had used it up. She'd made eggy bread, you know, French toast. Yeah. And then that was it. She wasn't getting money for a few days. Now, bless my mum, she wasn't very good with money management. And that's okay. She's not a bad mum. She just was struggling to keep things together. Anyway, I went and stole a bunch of fucking vegetables and stuff like that. Potatoes, tatties, carrots, neeps, all this stuff from the plots where the old men used to, like, in their plots. I went down there in the middle of the night and ransacked these fucking plots. And my mum was in her bed. I was like 9, 10 years old.
Wow.
Because I didn't want my mum struggling with the next day of seeing her heartbroken. And she came up in the morning and she's like, what the fuck? And she just looked at me. I could see she was hurt because she forced that situation on me. But no matter what, I always found a way.
Yeah.
And that night, with a little loaf that we had left, I cooked toast on the fire for me and my sister. And I remember that with like genuine, like, goodness.
Yeah.
So when I see the world right now, me and you know, we've been in war and we've done things and we had hard times. But those early years for me really fucking set me in stone. Like I can overcome anything.
I mean, that's an experience that most people wouldn't have until a long time later, you know, into your sort of adulthood. And you're there at sort of pre-teen, having to sort of help for your family. But there's something obviously in your brain that's it's obviously set sort of a little seed saying, right, I can do this. And, you know, you've got your challenges early on and you've already started to sort of think, right, how am I going to sort of deal with that? You know, what am I going to do to overcome this situation? And, you know, you've gone out, you've gone to the local sort of yard and you've taken some vegetables and you've supplied for your family. And, but, you know, it's the fondness because that's obviously brought you together as a unit.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, my mum, she doesn't like to talk about those years, my mum. And I never really bring it up, but now and again it kind of props up, and I just laugh. I'm like, Mum, like we got through it, you know. It's all right. And you know, that at the end of the day, right? It doesn't matter whether you're super rich or you're just getting by or you're really on the breadline. If you care about one another, you'll fucking find a way.
Absolutely, and that's what it's about, isn't it? It's those closest to you looking after each other. Seeing when someone's down or when there's a problem, and if you can help in any way, you should do that. It doesn't matter if it's a hug, if it's giving some food, help, whatever it is. People should do that for their nearest and dearest because it goes a long way.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember a story about you. I don't know if you remember this, but
I remember no stories.
when we were in Octalic, it was one or two, but it might have been one.
One, yeah.
Yeah, and nobody had a shower for a while, not really. And out of fucking nowhere, you turn up with like 25 fucking solar showers.
Huh.
And I remember thinking, how the fuck did he get his hands on that industrious bastards managed to get a hold of showers out in the middle of this shithole. And you did it. And I thought, that's the way that.
Yeah, there was a lot of smelly Americans. So, so you sort of left, obviously, home in Banff. You left school. Any qualifications? Did you sort of get GCSEs or anything like that?
Funnily enough, mate, like, it's weird. You would think I passed like all my flying, like PT and stuff like that. I failed just about everything, mate. And I was going through a lot when I was young. I really was going through a lot, And school was just to me, was like a social experiment. The idea of school and me just didn't work back then, which is funny because like these days I study like fucking quantum physics and that for fun, just for fun. I love these kinds of subjects that, I had to study equations when I took a job in oil and gas, like mathematical principles and stuff like a week-long course in algebra. But when I was young, I just wasn't interested. But there was one subject I loved, and that was English. I loved writing. I loved poetry. I loved the written word. I loved all the old kind of stuff, Scottish music, Scottish writing, Scottish Gaelic. I loved Shakespeare. I loved all the old tales. And I never really spoke about it much, but I was always writing when I was young and in the army. And I should have realised back then that was kind of something I was very much inclined to do. But no, I didn't really pass much at school, mate.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are probably very similar to that. It was kind of retakes, do a course you didn't want to do at college or join the military. So that sort of took you to... So you ended up at the recruitment office and you ended up in maybe the best regiment, who knows? But how did that go?
Do you know what? I knew when I was 8 years old I wanted to join the army. I knew very early on. Well, I didn't, like I was saying, I had a bit of a kind of interesting upbringing. But if I was lucky, on a Friday, my granny would give me £1. And that would be like my pocket money, which was very rare. But if I did get it, I would go down to the youth club on a Friday because they had inside football, five-a-side, the boxing, pool, table tennis, snooker, all that stuff. But I went in on this Friday. It was like 7 o'clock. And the Argyll Southern Highlanders had set up an assault course. And I went in and I'll never forget this soldier. He stopped. He was waiting to go for a tab. He pulled out a packet of Lambert Butler and he just looked down at me. I was only like fucking 8, 9 years old. He looked down at me and he went, "All right, son." And I remember looking up and thinking, "Oh, fuck, this is for me. Like, this is my way out." There was something, a presence about this individual and the assault course, it was for me.
Yeah.
Remember that day going, yeah, this is my ticket out of here.
And you hear that a lot, actually. A lot of the guys that we served with, a lot of their past, they wanted to get away from where they were coming from. It wasn't a question of, I want to join the military. It's a great career. It was, I want to do something else in life. I want to get out of this town or, and it seems to be like a lot of the Welsh guys who maybe came from old mining towns or people from Scotland, like yourself, who thought, I want something different. And so you went to the recruitment office and you said, I want to join the army. They probably tried to put you into one of your local regiments, did they? Like the Scottish Highlanders or one of those?
Yeah, they tried to get me into the Highlanders. When I went in, I wanted to join the Marines and I was only 16. And they said, look, you're going to have to wait 2 years. I was like, not a chance. Like, I want now. And they said, right, we'll go and take this test. I took the BARB test. And they said, you've actually done like not too bad on it. Like, would you consider a career with a trade? And I was like, yeah, whatever, 16-year-old, I just wanted to go in. And they gave me this leaflet and it said the Royal Corps of Signals. I was like, what the fuck is this? Now, I went home, and my mum had married at this point to a very nice guy, very old school, hard motherfucker. And he was ex-clandestine Royal Signals.
Okay.
And I had no idea at the time, but he'd been, he was a big influence on me. But when I sat down and showed him the stuff, he just kind of looked at me and he said, "Probably a good move, that lad." And that was it, mate. That was all the influence I needed. I thought there's some curiosity about this that I'm interested in. And I went back the next week, signed on the dotted line, 27th of March, 1997 at 10 o'clock in the morning with Major G. Lowe sitting beside me. I'll never forget it.
Wow. Yeah, no one does, do they? People don't forget the day they joined. It's one of those dates. In fact, if you want to get into anyone's password in their computer, just ask them the day they joined the army or what their regimental number is, and you'll probably get in.
Yeah.
So you're sort of, what's that, 16, 17 years old at this point? You go into basic training?
16 years old, mate, yeah.
16, little puppy. I don't even know if they do that anymore. I think they have to go to like some sort of foundation college now. I mean, 16, you think of our kids that are there like 16 years old. You think if they were running off to join the army, you'd be devastated. You'd be like, whoa, you're not old enough.
Fuck, my son turned 15 last week, and I'm like, no fucking way are you going to the army next year, type of thing,
Yeah.
Just, it's unfathomable to me.
Yeah, it is. And if you do join, you're not joining the Marines. So,
yeah.
So you go through basic training. What's that, Basenborn?
Yeah. Wasn't.
Exactly. For those wondering what Basenborn's like, watch Full Metal Jacket, because that's where they filmed it.
Yeah.
So I remember you used to march around camp and you'd be trying to picture scenes from the movie.
It's interesting how I watched that film so many times growing up, and I didn't know. And then, you get there and you start uncovering the history of things. You're like, fuck it now, And of course, there's Memphis Belle and all that shit.
That's right.
All that kind of cool stuff.
Oh, proper memories. And then you leave there, you go to Blanford, do your trade training.
Yeah. So Blanford became a relay op. Still totally really just figuring out what this whole game is, this whole green machine, and it was still kind of cloaked in a lot of mystery. Like, how does this all kind of work?
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, you're still a young pup, aren't you? You've not been exposed. You're in training still, but you finish all your training, and then you're sort of they say, right, that's it, off to the big wide world. So where do they send you?
Seven Sigs, Germany, which to this day is one of the most beautiful moments of my life. 4.5 years there of just really good people, brotherhood, memories that will forever be cherished in my heart forever. But we got sent. I loved it there. It was fantastic. But I was only just 18 for about, God, wasn't that long when I was 18, and we got posted to going to, war, but it doesn't really get spoken about that much.
You'll have to go back 20 seconds there. You dropped out. So you got posted to, and then I got garble. You got posted to where?
I got posted to Kosovo.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we got put on tour over there when that kicked off, and that was my
99.
Yeah, 99. Yeah. And it's weird, because I thought I'd been in training in my regiment for so long, and going on tour for the first time. It's exciting, very exciting, but it's weird because the pace is slower.
Yeah,
and that was what I remember that very early, thinking it's a lot slower than I was expecting. Nothing like movies, nothing like what you would imagine. But that's just the reality of it. But very, very real. Very, very quickly became apparent of how ugly the world can be.
Yeah, you're 18, 19 years old and you think everything's rosy. You've lived in this sort of camp environment where you're quite safe. You're in this sort of protective bubble where we're being taught about war, we're being told to run around with guns and everything else. But it's not until you actually see, Kosovo was pretty brutal, as obviously you're going to come on to. But I think for a lot of guys who hadn't done a Northern Ireland, they hadn't done Bosnia, they hadn't done Gulf One, this was their first foray into, people can be vicious bastards and brutal, and the ethnic cleansing and everything that went on over there. I suppose you saw that, you were involved sort of in helping, not in helping the people that were obviously affected. And
yeah, man, it's funny because as much as I did 2 tours in Iraq, as you know, we've spoken about, but Iraq, I was a lot older, experienced, and ready. And I was a detachment commander in the Iraq War, but when I went to Kosovo, I was still a kid, man.
Yeah.
I was still a kid, and it's funny because I give an interview, and it was funny because you know how sometimes a thing can just come out of your mouth and you're like, fucking hell. It's actually, even thinking about that, I just said that made me think. I was doing a BBC interview a few years ago, and it was live down in Glasgow at the fucking headquarters, and live in the middle of the air, and he said, he asked me, like, what was it like? And I said, look, we get asked this a lot. I said, but I'm going to put it in a frame of reference that you understand. I said, when I got posted there, I was only just legally allowed to hold a pint.
Yep.
The room fell silent, and you could see everyone picturing that, like, holy fuck. They've got kids that are just 17 to 18. They're starting to visualize the reality of, we're sending kids to here.
Yeah.
Fucking kids. I know it's the job, and we love it, right? When we're 18, we've done a few years training, and you are ready. But the truth is, man, you're just a kid.
Yeah.
And like you said, the ethnic cleansing, it was fucking brutal, man. Just realizing what people can do to each other, And it's not like people say it's so cold. I'm like, that's an understatement. It's pure hatred. It is a hundreds and hundreds of years of hatred that you ain't gonna fucking fix.
Yeah, that's right. And I suppose for anyone that's listening to this pod, so it's giving them a bit of background on Kosovo. It really was just that, wasn't it? I mean, it was neighbours turning on themselves. These are guys that have split bread between each other, and then the very next day, because they were of different religion, and it was the Serbs, the Croats, they were just butchering each other. And
I remember I was on the top of this location outside of a place called Petch, and we were there for a good month. But we were at the top of a hillside, and we were taking small arms fire quite often. Playing that down a little bit, like getting shot at, quite often. And all. We thought it was just exciting, it was part of the game. But we were not allowed to fire back. And we kept asking like permission because the rules of engagement, like, no, we need to engage them. And they're like, no fucking dare engage them. Because they were using kids as human shields.
Yeah.
I'm like, top man, like getting shot at. The rules of engagement are saying that we can't return fire. But if we do, this is what we've got faced with. And then you're like, that could end up on CNN, fucking Sky News, such and such. And you're like, it's fucking mental.
Yeah.
Even things like, there was a woman came up to us one day. I think she was maybe 22, 23. And she was absolutely beautiful. I remember thinking, like, stunning woman. And she was like begging us to come and like kill this guy. We're like, no, it's not what we're here to do. She's like, no, I'm getting raped every night.
Yeah.
Like, you need to help me.
How do you deal with that at your age?
Well, that's it. Like your instinct is to protect and serve, and do good, and you're being presented with a situation that is morally and ethically unjust, and you have to just, sorry, can't help. It's crazy. Yeah. It kind of like messes you when you're young, like that kind of stuff.
But these are all sort of situations that you've been in, and it registers somewhere in your brain, fairly deep down at the time, because you're fairly naive, probably a little bit immature still, because we all think we're invincible at that age, but we're not. We haven't got that life experience yet. And that's when things start unlocking 10, 15 years later, and we relate them back to these experiences from our childhood, and that woman that comes up and says that, and you think, oh, could I have potentially done something or what have you? And so, I mean, how did Kosovo sort of affect you sort of at the time?
Those were, you would think those kind of incidents were the big ones. But for me, it was we were in a convoy at the end of our second tour. I did 2 tours there. And at the end of the second one, we were driving, I think it was about 5 vehicles, and I was in a Land Rover and co-driving. And there was an unplanned stop. And your just instinct was like, something's wrong. We're not meant to be stopping. It was just a one-way kind of ticket. And check your ammo, check your fucking weapon, check everything. All that's fucking regular stuff. Looking around you, heart starts going. Then you're like, just relax, breathe, do your fucking normal shit. And then everybody saw this guy walking towards us. So we sort of like stepped out the vehicle because he's carrying this fucking object that didn't look right. And everyone kind of debussed and realized that he wasn't carrying a thing, he was carrying a fucking person. And it was the body of a child. Child was about 12, 13 years old, blown apart, fucking body mangled. You're thinking, fuck, man, this is happening, it's right here. But as bad as that was, his mum turned up, and it was just utter chaos, watching this family's world just being like shredded apart.
Brutal.
Yeah, it was very, very it was very fucking starkly real. And then we got the order to just leave them, and we drove away, which was fucking heartbreaking.
It is, and how you deal with that is exceptionally difficult.
Well, that's the thing, mate. Like, it's funny because we didn't deal with it. Nobody mentioned it once, ever. It was never brought up in question. We drove away. Nobody spoke. Nobody mentioned that day, that night, and then nobody fucking brought it up ever again. And that, for me, kind of was the beginning of like how I got mentally like unstable with PTSD and stuff like that. But it was like years later.
I suppose it's once you become a parent yourself that a lot of this starts coming back up.
Yeah, man. I had a child when I was 25. So that's like, 6 years later. And a lot more mature. I'd been on tour twice more. Done the Iraq War, and then a tour after that. I left the army and tried to find my feet as a civilian. And having a kid, I quit drinking because things were getting so bad. But even then, I was like, this shit is just fucking bubbling.
Yeah. We've got to talk.
Right, yeah.
We're not taught to do that. We're not taught anything. We're just taught, come back. Don't talk about it. Get a crate in. Let's get pissed. We're probably going to play up. Or literally come back off tour. You get off the plane. They say, see you in a month. There's no decompression. There is now. I think it's becoming a message, but I think previous to that, there was no help.
Yeah, man. Well, at the end of my second tour of Iraq, it was clear there was something going on with me, because I was extremely fucking addicted to my fitness. I was the fittest I'd ever been in my life. I was doing about 10 miles in the morning, fucking 1,000 press ups a day, 500 pull ups, 10 miles at night, plus my fucking patrols, my shifts, all that stuff, just non-stop. I just couldn't stop, couldn't switch off. And I hadn't had a drink for a long time when I was on tour. And I managed to get a hold of it. There was a Squadron bar back in Basra. Nothing happened. And I would say if it did, but they wrote a letter to the CEO the next morning, and basically they made an example out of me because they were embarrassed. I told them to piss off or something as little as that.
Who did you tell to piss off? It broke up for a sec.
The RAF RMPs when I was on.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And they wrote a letter to the CEO saying that I'd, acted like an idiot or whatever, but it was ridiculous. No. And to put it plainly, I hadn't even hit them or anything, nothing had happened. But they made an example of me. So a week before I came off the full school board, I got bussed back down to Signal, back down to private. I got my money reduced back down to private, and then I got RTU'd from tour 7 weeks before I got to finish my second tour. Within 30 hours, I was back on my hometown with about $6,000 in my bank, in the pub, with no decompression, nothing. Like a day earlier, I was in Iraq.
Yeah, about to be promoted to corporal.
Yeah, my whole fucking world flipped upside down, and then just went, right, just go home. I remember getting home and going, right then. That was an interesting few weeks.
That's shit. I mean, there's nothing to be. You said there, the head shed were not looking after you. They were not thinking, hang on, is there something going on here, or this is out of character for this guy? the Steve I remember, you were a really good soldier. Yeah, we all like to have a drink and a tussle, but I think any OC, CO should have seen it. Man, is there something else going on here?
Yeah. I mean, like, even if I was to get punishment, fine, great, and they should have had that conversation. But for me, looking back as a grown man, as a father, as someone who's lived life, and looking back in a leadership kind of view, I think back then and I'm like, you sent that young kid home with nothing, on his own, with his whole unit still on tour, and you expected it to be okay. So it's an interesting thing, which is why many of these experiences in my life, I'm not angry at them. I'm actually very grateful for them, because they provided the sort of like the framework for the man I was going to become.
So this is what, 2005, 4, 5, you got sent back from there and sort of things started to change?
Three.
So that was, and then, so you come back, did you get promoted again, or did you sort of kind of stay where you're at?
No. I actually tried to take my life a few times.
Fuck.
Yeah. I let go of the wheel of the car doing 60 miles an hour on the A303 beside Beaufort. Wrecked the car. They ignored it. Tried to cut my wrists. They ignored that. And then when I finally got to the doctors, he he tried to advise me of how to commit suicide more efficiently.
You're fucking joking. This is a military doctor. All the signs are there. They're supposed to be looking after you. And, man, you've been failed. That.
Oh, big time.
Absolutely.
But the next week, he got posted to Bosnia.
Off the back of what he told you, you think? They sort of... Did you make a complaint, or you...
Well, I didn't. My wife at the time did. I came home because I went to the troop staff sergeant, and I'm not going to say names, but they actually were like, big set of balls, Stevie, for coming and telling us that. We're very proud of you. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get some help. And because my life was just going south very quickly. And it was clear I was in a lot of pain, a lot of stress, and I needed help. And when I asked for help, I didn't get it. I actually got fucked over. And then I remember thinking, I've just came to this doctor and told him the worst thing that's ever happened to me and what I'm going through, and you told me how to kill myself.
Wow.
And I remember like just feeling numb.
Yeah.
And I went back to my married quarters, and she's like, you okay? And I says, I'm not sure. And she told me, like, what's wrong? And I explained what happened, and she just fucking exploded. She phoned the CEO. She actually phoned the papers. And a lot happened. I was there was SIB investigations, a lot of stuff that went on for about a year.
This is all when we were still serving together. We're in the same squadron. Yeah, no one knew. We would never have known.
Nobody knew. I kept it quiet, as that's what we do, isn't it?
It is. But I think that's the message, isn't it? So many guys keep things quiet, these demons, and you've got to talk to those around you. I mean, I'd say talk to professionals, and I think you were the exception there. You had a really shit doctor, but speak to professionals. There is help there.
Oh mate, without shadow of a doubt, that is why, like the work that I do, the speaking, the mentoring, the coaching, and all that stuff, the charity work, the brand I built is called Unspoken Wounds, as you probably know. Mm-hmm. That's why it's called that. There's a very specific reason. It's because all those wounds that were unspoken for so fucking long were the very reason of why I was in so much fucking pain.
Yeah.
I see all this happening. I've got so many people that we both know who get in touch with me. And they're like, Stevie, I'm in a world of shit. I don't know what to do. And this happens a lot. And I work with a lot of people in various different industries, from prison, NHS, military, oil and gas, construction, and even like universities and stuff. And it's the same pattern all over. People are not talking enough.
Yeah.
And when we start to talk about these unspoken wounds that we have, and you know what? Even though I've had all that stuff, someone might be struggling with a granny might have just passed away that month.
Yeah.
To them, that is the universe.
That's right.
And there's no measurement of how bad or worse it is. everyone's got something that they struggle with. And it's not a reflection on are you a weak or a strong person. Like, we're all just doing the fucking best we can.
We are human. I think that's the idea of this podcast for people that are struggling, who are listening to this, is there is light at the end of that tunnel. We all have those moments when we just think that there's nothing else out there for us. It's a very dark time, but there is light out there. And, your story and other stories around this will hopefully help people see that. And, there is help. And there is a message, is that, keep going, don't give up. And, there is sort of family, there is happiness to be had. And so you're at a massive low. So where does it go from there then? You leave the military, you get low, or you now sort of see a path to recovery?
No, things got worse after that. I was medically discharged. My career was kind of taken from me. I remember driving home thinking, what the fuck am I going to do now? This is not what I saw. I was a life career in the army for me. And that was kind of just taken away from me. But I went home. I went from job to job for about a year. Couldn't settle in any job. I didn't like the work ethic of those I was around. I struggled with that. I struggled with the amount that they gossiped and they bullshitted about just shit. And I remember thinking, I am not going to fucking survive in this world.
And what was that world? What did you initially do when you left?
I was working on the roads as construction and driving gritters in the winter, which is a good job. Money was pretty okay, but it just wasn't me. It was just like, this job's been made available. I'll take that job because I've got a son on the way. I have to be in a work, because my kid's on the way. I was fucking miserable. And, I'd finish work and I'd be like, boys, just want to go to the gym? They're like, no. I'm like, okay.
Different mindset.
Yeah, just they didn't want to do anything. They'd no, hunger. So, yeah, I had a few different jobs, mainly around construction, so like grafting, hard labour work. And then I thought, if I'm going to survive, I need to get myself focused into something that's meaningful that I can build on. And oil and gas provided that. So I worked very fucking hard to get myself into a good position. Starting salary, about 35 grand a year. Worked my way up to 55, 60 grand a year. Very good career. I worked very hard.
I mean, that's well known, isn't it, the oil and gas industry? I mean, it's hard to get into. And when you're in it, people are hungry there. And they work you hard. But if you put in the time, there's some dizzy heights that you can go. I've known a few people in that industry and they've earned well, but God, Jesus, they look pretty tired when they come home.
Yeah, it's funny because like a year offshore, because I was in drilling, and like you can do a year offshore and have a room. Always drilling. And I remember actually thinking, this is fucking harder than being on tour. But
you got to work for your money.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah, you're not just having fun, yeah.
Well, so how long did you stay in the oil and gas industry?
12 years solid. I was 12 years consistent.
So that's what takes you up to about 3-4 years ago, I suppose.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, I just finished this year.
Okay.
In the middle of the year, when when the coronavirus kicked in and it just flattened the entire industry. Pardon me. We had I found myself unhappy.
Yeah.
I wasn't, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not very good at politics. I'm not.
Remember.
And yeah, to get higher in the game, you have to be very good at politics, and it's just not something I'm very good at.
No, but I suppose that's also a positive. Don't sit there. Don't let the tail wag the dog. If you think there's change that's needed or something's not right, you got to speak up. And people I've worked with, I've always had more respect for someone who's willing to actually speak up for the better than somebody who just wants to be a yes man. But in the background, you've obviously set up Unspoken Wounds, and you're starting to talk. You're starting to sort of do lectures and sort of get on the circuit to sort of try and get the message out there?
Yeah, I mean, I've for the last 10 years, I've been working for free in the speaking world, speaking from London to the top of Inverness, all across the UK. I won contracts, and I said I'll do it for nothing. So I was doing all these gigs for nothing because I wanted to do it, and because I was earning enough offshore, I didn't need the money, and it was in my heart because I really wanted to make an impact, and I was speaking in prisons, universities, variety of different oil companies, and I did a bunch of content that went viral, and I ended up becoming a consultant in the energy industry and for different companies around Scotland. So I'm kind of the guy that. So, for example, there's companies around the UK where they'll have staff and they'll have sadly taken their life, and then they've got the crisis of how do we manage this situation with everyone else. So I'm the guy that they phone and they bring in to work through that that very difficult time. And I'll go in and do speeches for their staff, for their leadership teams, and that's kind of where I am now. And that's kind of my full-time job now. I do a lot of that.
And have you found that with coronavirus, obviously that's had a massive sort of change to people's life, both work and sort of home. A lot of people have lost their jobs, or people aren't actually getting to go into the office, so they are working from home, and they're missing that sort of vital sort of social sort of interaction that they get with other people. And I think mental health has probably suffered hugely in the last 8 months.
Yeah. Do you know what, right? I might get a bit of flack for this. I might get a little bit of flack, but I can only talk from my honest perspective and from where I am. This has been the hardest year for most of us.
Yeah.
There's no denying that this has been a complicated, very, very interestingly complex time. However, it's also provided an opportunity, because one thing that most people need is they need the world to kind of shut down, for life to slow down, for things to just force them to look at themselves. Because most of the time, people aren't that very fucking happy. They're trundling along, they're just kind of going along, and they know that something's not right. They know they want change, but they don't do anything about it. Yep. And they complain to their friend at the pub. They moan to their friend across the street or their co-workers, but then they don't do anything about it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and it's difficult, right? But the one thing that we need individually is to go, right, this is the one thing that I want. I want to start my business. I want to become a PT. I want to become a driving instructor. I want to become a full-time mum, whatever that might be for this person. What do I and they need to just stop the world and go, right, I need to stop going to the pub. I need to stop gossiping. I need to stop eating shit food. Yep. And the only time that really works is when we have time.
Yep.
We've been given an opportunity here. I know it's fucking horrible what's been going on, and I'm not taking away from that. But if we can't, as individuals, look at the positive in the worst situation, I do think there's a positive in all of this. I really do.
There is, and I think a lot of people you speak to are almost having this life reset moment, that they're actually having the courage now, because it's not just them on their own. A lot of people saying, I can work from home, or I can change my life, I can work less hours, or I'm spending more time with my family, I'm seeing what's important. And I think we all need to do that. We need to take stock. What I hope doesn't happen is that things go back to normal next year, and then people just get stuck on the same old rat race, and they're getting dragged into work, they're unhappy, everything just goes back to as it was. And we look back at 2020 and think that was the year that we could have but didn't. And people need to sort of change what they're doing. And I know it's not easy, but then that's having that moral courage, and just saying, right, I'm going to take this out there, I'm going to do it. Because a lot of the time when we take that leap, I know it's a leap into the unknown, but pretty much it works out in some way or other. And no one sits on their deathbed and says, I wish I'd worked harder.
Yes. I mean, you've got to work hard on the things that you want, but ultimately as well, you've got to build joy and fucking happiness in your life. And just to kind of go on to what you were saying there, you're so true. I didn't drink for 10 years, and then my marriage fucking ended and stuff. I thought, you know what? I'm going to have a few beers with my mates, and I can't drink worth shit anymore, which I'm quite proud of. I just
Never
can't drink. But I found myself in lockdown I was drinking too much. And I remember thinking, come on, Steve, you know what's happening here. You're going to end up piling weight on, unfit. It's not healthy for you. And I thought I need to do something. So I was approaching 40 this year, coming up to my 40th birthday, and I thought, I need to do something significant. It's this military mindset. I need to do something significant to myself so that when I'm 90 years old, I can look back and go, young man, you had something about yourself.
Yes.
I put the drink aside for fucking a good few weeks. I started to get walking, getting healthy, reading and listening to tons of podcasts. Very empowering. I don't like the word motivation. I think motivation is bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think you can get inspired. I also want to tell people as well, I get this a lot. How do I find my purpose? I'm like, you never find your purpose. Because the idea that you had to find it means that you don't have it.
Yep.
It's something inside of us all. You cannot find what's not inside of you. It is within you,
Unlock it.
Yeah, it's the uncovering of it. It's an uncovering process. A long time ago, a lot of people have asked me, how did I get over my PTSD? How did I fix it? I'm like, I never fixed it. I just began to be grateful for it because it gave me something that I wasn't looking at properly. And a lot of people are like, okay, see, I'm very grateful for it. I call it the gift. I call it my gift. All this shit that happened to me, it unlocked a part of me that was trying to talk to me for a long time. And I've read this story that the sculptor never designs or creates anything. He just chips away all the non-essentials to reveal what was already there.
Yeah.
And I did that. I got rid of the excuses. I got rid of the alcohol. I got rid of the laziness, of the mentality of the victim. I just started to strip it all away.
Yeah.
And then years later, I learned that the word in Greek for chisel is character. So it's a mission on chiseling away all the shit that you don't need to reveal your character.
It takes strength of character to do that. But I think just hearing the way that you've just sort of described that, I think many people will be able to relate to that. And it's so true. I mean, you don't get over PTSD, some of these life experiences, some of the sort of mental health issues. It's not a pill you can take. It's something you have to help yourself with. But it's a process. And I think stripping away and working on it is, I think that people will hear that and really understand what you just said. So that sort of you're out now, you're sort of you're working on this 24/7. So you're not in the oil and gas, you're out there helping people. But I mean, financially, that must obviously not be an easy thing because, just doing a podcast or tipping up and doing a conference for a company is not going to help pay the bills. So where do you see it going?
Oh, well, this is it. I did a lot of work over the years, like studying. I read a lot of autobiographies of successful billionaires, and they all say the same thing. It takes years. Well, I've had the nice toys and stuff, but it doesn't make me happy. What makes me happy is working with people. And I decided this year that, you were saying earlier on about a reset. It'd been in my heart and my mind for years. I'm like, you need to do this full time. But it's too scary to leave that money.
Yeah.
This year turned up and I just went, do you know what? You're about to turn 40. You're smart. You know what you want. You need to fucking go with this all the way, Stevie boy. And we got made redundant. Everyone panicked. And I had a smile on my face. I thought, let's fucking go. So on my 40th birthday, I left the house at 6 o'clock. I'd planned this for weeks. I left the house at 6 o'clock in the morning on my bike and cycled the entire north of Scotland for almost a month, living wild. And I started a clothing company. I started my speaking. I recorded weeks and weeks of material for a documentary that's still being produced. Mm-hmm. I just remember thinking, this is what my life is about. It's about telling stories. It sounds so ridiculous, but telling stories is what gets people through.
It is, because they need to hear it from someone else that they can look to and think, actually, no, this guy, this woman, the same as me. They've been in a similar situation. They've got through it. That means I can get through it. How did they do it? So, you took the time out, you did exercise. And I said this on an earlier podcast with a guy called Darren, and we were talking about, his outlet for PTSD and his struggles was fitness. And he was saying that the doctor once said that if he could do one thing, and if he could prescribe fitness and health in a tablet form, it would help so many people, because it doesn't matter what you throw down your neck, all these different sort of pills, getting out there, releasing some of these chemicals in your brain when you're just enjoying yourself, you feel free, that has got so many more benefits.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, I've studied this stuff, in the world, not fitness, but the lack of fitness and what it does to you when you don't do it. You become lethargic, your brain becomes foggy, you don't think properly. I mean, even just, you don't need to go to the gym. Just go for a fucking walk.
Yeah, just get outside.
Fitness, getting outside is fitness. You don't need to go and do 10 hours in the gym a week.
Yeah.
It's taking the dog out,
Yeah.
But I mean, that's enough. Get out in a bit of fucking fresh air, thinking about it. If there's a problem in your life, get the fuck outside, and that problem will find the solution.
It does. There is a solution to every problem.
100%. Well, it's funny. It's funny you speak about that, right? And I wasn't actually going to say this, but I'm working very diligently right now. When I did that trip around the North Coast 500, there were days where I didn't see people, and in the top these ranges of mountains, and for ex-military, it's like it's got an almost heavenly connection to it, and you're like, man, I just love being out here.
Yeah.
Because I was spending time on my own, I had a lot of time to think about, okay, you've started your company and the excitement's over. You're out doing the work now. You're out doing your thing. What's next? And I remember laughing at myself and going, what's next? Like, slow the fuck down. Like, you're doing what you're meant to be doing. And I had this moment, and I was like, I've been talking about releasing a book and all these things, and I didn't know what to call it. So I've just been writing the book for the last sort of 4 or 5 months and a bit more. But just 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in my kitchen. I write on my window. I've got these chalk pens where I can write on the window and the rub off. I was just sitting here and I had this fucking flash of thought. And I ran over, grabbed the pen, and I just wrote in the window, "The wound is the way." I just remember sitting there looking, and I got this goosebumps. I just think, that's it. That's everything I've been speaking about for the last fucking 13 years. That is it. That's how I did it. I didn't run away from it. The antidepressants didn't work. The being angry didn't work. The hiding, the being the victim, none of it worked. The minute I started to look at my PTSD, my depression, my anxiety, all the excuse, everything, when I turned and faced it and I said, you've got something for me that I need to take from. And I went into it. The wound is the way. And it's they say that the obstacle is the solution.
Yeah.
They say that the obstacle itself is the solution.
It is.
Everyone's trying to fix things by, I need to go on a diet, I need to go on this. But what they're really looking for is to feel something that they feel that they're missing.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
You're good at this. But it's true. I mean, what you said in the last sort of 10, 15 minutes just resonated with me hugely. It's true, isn't it? It's people say, I'm going to go on a diet after Christmas. Well, why don't you just change your diet full stop? Why don't you change your life full stop? Why don't you, I'm going to start running. Well, why don't you go for a walk this afternoon? Get out, be happy. If something's not right in your life, change it. I know it's easy to say that, but we can all make small changes which have big steps. And that's where we need to go.
Yeah, no, and this is it. I think this is why I'm saying as well, because I'm not taking away from the fact of how overwhelmingly disastrous this year has been for businesses, for families. I mean, it's been difficult for thousands and thousands of people in the UK and for millions, but it's been devastating for a lot of people. They've lost businesses, they've lost their way of life, marriages have ended, people have their mental health suffered. Like I look at the statistics and stuff because it's of interest to me, but the number one debilitating illness in the world today is depression.
Yeah.
It's the result for the most chronic illnesses on earth. And that you can look at that as a statistic, but me, I'm like, why? What is going on in society that we're so fucking unhappy? But we're living in the most technologically advanced age of our time. So what the fuck's going on? And it's like we were just been saying here, people don't go outside. They don't just go out for a walk and take joy in a country park.
Yeah. It's almost like we've become the Matrix. People have forgotten those simple, fundamental life experiences about just going for a walk, about sitting at a table and talking to your children. How was your day at school? You know, just talking to your dog, which I love talking to my dog, and I have the best conversations. But it's just these simple things in life that I think we've all forgotten. We're all guilty of it, and we always go like full circle where we get wrapped up in our career and whatever it is we're doing, and we just lose sight of those actually things that are important to us. My wife reminds me of it all the time. I don't listen. I say yeah, whatever, lip service. But I think we've all got to change, and I think those changes will help us.
Yeah, ultimately, I mean, it's a simple thing. Like, I spend a lot of time working with people, and I ask them simple questions, and I'll say, like, what do you want? And then they'll proceed to tell me what they don't want. Well, I don't want to be unfit anymore. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be in this relationship. And I'm like, hang on a second. What do you want? They don't know.
Yeah.
And we in the first part, like sometimes a few days, we're having to strip away all this angst, this fucking layers of things that have been built up, And it's funny to go back to something you said earlier. I was listening, but you were saying that to make a difference in the workplace, we have to be able to speak up and to not be so timid and to have a voice. That was what I started to do offshore. I started to speak up about health and safety because we were taking chances that were just ridiculous. And I remember saying, like, look, we're going to fucking hurt somebody here. If not damage equipment, we're going to hurt people. And we've got to send them home. And if they're going to go home missing fingers or worse, we need to start being a bit more aware. And they didn't like it. They did not like that I was speaking up. And they didn't like the fact that I was doing speaking outside of my job. And I was quite an opinionated individual, but with general kindness about it. So when I stepped away from my job, I thought, well, I could make a difference in there. I'll make a difference as my own boss. And it's a lot harder. It's not as financially rewarding just yet, but by fuck, it makes a difference. When I get to step into these companies and there's 50 people in the room and you see them coming up to you, that difference, and they come up, and we're talking grown men here, like big scaffolder guys and like worky boys, and they're like, mate, I'm having a nightmare at home. My fucking marriage is going down the pan. It's affecting my job. I'm like, fuck, and giving them a place where they can feel safe to talk.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. It really does.
I can believe that. And I think one of the things I learned fairly sort of late is that wealth is not linked to happiness. There are a lot of people who at both ends of the spectrum on what they earn and what they can buy. Some guys can go out and buy a shitload of toys, and other guys are struggling to put food on the table. But the guys with the toys aren't the happiest. The guys that are at home at night, finishing, sitting around a table with their wife and kids, they're the happy ones. And I think that makes you realise what's right. So I think that for me, I think if you want to make a change, I think you've got to make it at home first. And then take that to the workplace. We've still got to provide. So we can't just jack our jobs in tomorrow. I'm sure we'd all love to just call it a day. The boss is a wanker. Let's go home. But then we've got mortgages and what have you. But yeah, I think you made some really good points tonight. And so, I mean, we're sort of getting to the closing parts. So the next couple of minutes, sort of tell us, where do you see it going? If we could get a message out there for you on this podcast, what would it be? How can we help you help others?
You know, I've been speaking a little bit about mental health for a while, and there's something there's something I really care about right now, and next year is going to be quite interesting because I'm away to cycle back to Kosovo, and I'm doing it. I'm cycling across the UK. I'm going to spend about 6 months touring the UK, meeting people and talking on my bike, living rough, and I'm trying to remind people that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what size you are, what's in your bank. It doesn't matter all that shit. For me, the most significant moment in anyone's life is when they realize that they need to start looking in here. Your fucking heart. There is this thing, right? We're all looking to fucking feel something, feel connected, feel happiness, get our lover, our partner, our husband or wife to make us feel good. We're so busy trying to change the world around us, we're not looking at the one thing we need to take heed of and take charge of, which is ourselves. All the answers, all the stuff that you're wanting to feel, it's sitting in here. We're up here all the time. Now, this is a very, very powerful game, the mind. It's so powerful. But this, connected to your heart, that's the game. And this book that I'm writing, The Wound is the Way, it's about getting people to find their way back home. And I call home in here.
Fantastic.
And if you can live here, no matter what your surroundings, you can be, like, for example, you could be homeless, but you might have your feet, so you can walk. You could walk to the park. You might be homeless. You can then stumble across somebody who's in a wheelchair. It's about perspective.
Yeah. So true.
And we've lost this fucking connection to ourselves. And we're looking at fucking, these things, these toys and all these things and to make our life feel better. And they're all nice. They're all great. This wonderful stuff. But without this, it's pointless.
Yeah. That's true. I think social media, phones, all this connected sort of 21st century life, I'm going to sound like a granddad now, but it probably does more harm than good. It's lovely to be able to do what we're doing now. But I think we just need to get a sense of perspective and think, right, let's just put that down. Let's just turn it off. It's not easy, but I'll tell you what, when you've had a few days away from your phone or you go on holiday somewhere where there's no phone signal, you go for that initial, oh my God, hot sweats, who's been trying to get hold of me, or have I got a message? To, like, after a couple of days, you are properly relaxed and you feel good. And it's great. And I think it'd be good if we could sort of stretch that out for a bit longer in life. But okay, so anyone who's listening to this, they think, I want to hear more about what Steve's got to say. How can you help me? How do they get in contact with you? Where do they go? www.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go to Facebook or Instagram and you look up Unspoken Wounds, so Facebook, Unspoken Wounds, and there's a community there. We're growing. We're about 16,000 and growing, and we've got a clothing brand now, Unspoken Fire, and that's doing not bad. So it's been it's a stuff on there, and we talk about stuff, and people engage. It's a really good community.
Oh, brilliant. You literally dropped out again for about 10 seconds. Did you you were talking about, I'm assuming you were talking about like a forum there or where people can engage and sort of just talk to each other?
I was talking about my receding hairline and the fact I'm going grey and I'm looking older than I am.
Fuck off. You're looking good on Zoom, mate. We are in black and white.
Yeah. Just Facebook and look up Unspoken Wounds.
Brilliant. Okay. Guys, anyone who needs to talk, needs to sort of speak out, Steve's there to help you. So I always ask this to all our guests. So the 3 items, the 3 objects that you can't live without.
Pen, notepad. Third one, Jesus. Cup of tea.
Very true.
Cup of tea. It's unbelievable what a brew will fix.
That is true. There's probably a lot to be said there when our parents sort of used to turn around and saying, have a nice cup of tea.
It's funny because then, like, a notepad and pen, like, everywhere. And, if I'm going out for the day, I'll grab that and it goes in my day sack. I'll take it out with me. And it's funny as well, right? Because like on my phone, right, on my home screen, apart from my son, I've got like right here, like a voice recorder. So the minute I open my phone, the first thing that's right by my thumb is the voice recorder. So for something I want to remember, I just on my phone.
Yeah.
And it's one of the fastest ways of doing it. Because I'm such a fucking busy motherfucker. I have a million thoughts a day, and probably only 5 of them are worthwhile. But I take notes on my phone, and maybe at the end of the week I'll go through them, and I'm like, oh fuck, that's right. That was a good idea.
That's a good tip for anyone, isn't it? Never need to talk or anything. Just put it into your phone. Replay it. Make a note.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. There's a good frame. If you think it, ink it.
You are such a changed guy. For the bloke I knew years ago. So, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on and, sort of take that journey in your shoes. And you've really sort of trodden the path, sort of highs and lows. But I'm chuffed that it's all sort of, you're on the up and you're helping other people now and you're sort of finding happiness, it seems, in yourself. And you know your sort of path that you want to carry on leading. So I think anyone that listens to this podcast tonight, they'll be impressed. I think they'll definitely take something away from it.
Well, I just love people. I do. I love people. And I think people deserve to give themselves, just to take it a little bit more easy on themselves. They're doing the best they can. Definitely.
I think they need to go out and stay safe this Christmas, and they need to sort of take 2021 and embrace it.
Yeah, man.
Well, look, it has been awesome to catch up. When you're on your bike journey around the UK, make sure you pop down to the sunny south coast and come say hello. We'll pull up a sandbag. We'll bore the kids.
Have a few beers, have a few fucking stories.
Mate, appreciate you coming on. Fantastic. Well, that was Steve Beedie, and what a great episode. Certainly brought back some memories, and he reminded me of a few things that I've forgotten. But we'll leave that there. So, Steve, you can catch him on all the usual channels on the Wounded Podcast and his channel on Instagram and YouTube. Reach out to him. He's coming back for season 3. So, it's great that we've got this back up there. So, listen to this, and he'll be back again in a few weeks telling us what he's been up to the last few years and how his journey's continued. As always, please be great if you can leave some feedback. Go on the Apple Podcasts app if you're listening to this via that. Scroll to the bottom, stick a little star rating on, little 1-2 word review. Honestly, it all helps and we really appreciate that. Same on YouTube, Spotify, or any other channels you're listening on. For us, though, that's another episode in the can. Hope you enjoyed it. There's plenty more out there, so have a listen to them and obviously leave us the feedback. Drop us a message if you want to ask any questions or see any other guests come on the show, and we'd be delighted to reach out to them on your behalf. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.